Who is a perfect couple from a TV show, movie, or in real life you've seen? How does the idea of talking about dating sound to you? Well, I guess it sort of depends on who you're talking about it with, right? Like talking to your friends isn't really that big of a deal, or writing about it in your journal isn't that risky. But talking to your parents or talking to your community group leader at church, like to some of you that might be super awkward. But maybe for some of you it doesn't actually seem that bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, how awkward do you feel talking about dating? Do you feel like a lot of middle schoolers you know are dating? No matter how you feel about it, we think talking about dating and sex and sexual desires and all that stuff that comes with it is just too important to skip over. Now, we know that not everyone in this room is even allowed to date yet, and we know that not everyone in this room wants to date yet. But we think it's important to have conversations like this one here at church because we want the best for you in all things, and that includes dating. And we also know that what's best for you when it comes to dating can be difficult to figure out. You see, we see movies and TV shows and influencer couples that sort of give us these too good to be true images of dating and relationships all the time. But here's the thing, dating and relationships aren't always picture perfect. You may have experienced this in your own relationships, or you noticed it in the adult relationships that are around you. They can be awkward, they can be frustrating, they can be disappointing, confusing, messy, weird. Like, the truth is, relationships can be less than perfect sometimes. But knowing that, many of us still probably have an idea of what we hope a dating relationship might be like. Maybe right now we feel like we're ready to date, but we aren't allowed to yet. Or maybe dating is all our friends seem to talk about, but we just don't really care all that much. Maybe we want to date someone, but no one has seemed to notice us or is interested in us. Or maybe we just started dating for the first time. What's one reason someone might want to have a boyfriend or girlfriend? What's one reason someone might not want to have a boyfriend or girlfriend? No matter what category we fall into, we probably still have an idea of what a perfect relationship should look like. So let's just see what you think the perfect relationship should look like. If you agree with the statement that I'm going to make, I want you to stand up. And if you don't, then just keep sitting, okay? So, a perfect relationship is one where they get along with all of our friends. A perfect relationship is one where we both look like Instagram models and take the best couple photos. A perfect relationship is one where we enjoy the same activities, the same sports. A perfect relationship is one where our longest Snapchat streak is with that one special person. A perfect relationship is one where we're never jealous of the person they sit next to in math class. A perfect relationship is one where we have dinner at their house and get to meet their parents. A perfect relationship is one where we get to hang out whenever we want outside of school. A perfect relationship is one where we laugh at the same things. A perfect relationship is one where our palms don't sweat like the Amazon rainforest when we hold hands. A perfect relationship is one where we both make the best couple TikTok videos for everyone else. A perfect relationship is where we don't have a lot of drama, we don't have a lot of fights. When we think about dating, we focus a lot on what we want the relationship to look like. We think about who we want to date, what we want the relationship to be like, and the kind of stuff that we want to do together. And while all that stuff is definitely important to consider, I think when it comes to dating and relationships, we often forget to ask what we should be focusing on before we even start dating. It's important because our answer impacts what dating looks like for us and even who we choose to date. Look, even if you're thinking like, okay, this is deep and all, but look, I'm not really even interested in dating right now. I totally get that. But here's the thing, it is still important for us to think about this because we're laying the foundation for our future relationships right now. So even if you're not dating or not interested in dating right now, understand understanding what we should be thinking about when it comes to dating and relationships is very important. So when it comes to dating and relationships, where should we look for help? How can we make sure we're focusing on the right things when it comes to dating both now and in the future? What's one characteristic you want a person you like to have? Why do you think it's important to develop these characteristics in yourself too? Well, there's actually some pretty old advice that might be helpful for us today. A couple thousand years ago, this dude named Paul wrote a letter to Christians in a town called Corinth. Now, Paul was a guy whose life had been completely changed by Jesus. And after encountering him, Paul started sharing the message of Jesus with people all over the world. And one of the places Paul went to spread this message was Corinth. After he spent time in the city, Paul wrote the people there a message to remind them of what God says is best for them. In his first letter to the Corinthians, Paul included a couple of sentences that can help us here and now. In fact, I think it's actually the kind of stuff we should think about when it comes to dating and relationships. So check it out. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Here, Paul listed what God says love looks like. Right? Like love is patient, love is kind, it's faithful, hopeful, it's lasting. And when we think about that kind of love, isn't it exactly what we want other people to give us? I mean, honestly, don't we usually think about the type of love Paul mentioned as being about the other person in our relationships? We want the other person to be patient. We want them to be kind, right? We hope they're faithful to us. So when we read a list like this, we usually see it as a long list of the things that we want to find in the person that we're dating. And to be clear, those are good things. That's not a bad thing, okay? These are not bad things at all. God does want us to have this kind of love in all of our relationships. He wants us to look for these types of characteristics in other people when it comes to everything from friendships to dating. But we shouldn't just look for them in other people. Instead of focusing on finding all this great stuff in other people, we need to stop and look at ourselves. We need to consider if we're that kind of person as well. Becoming the person God made us to be is so important, and a huge part of that is allowing God to develop all the great characteristics on Paul's list in ourselves. What Paul wrote about 2,000 years ago is still what our lives and our love should be made of today. No matter if you choose to date or not, one step you can take toward becoming the person God created you to be is to practice sexual integrity. Basically, that means choosing to respond to the sexual things that we feel, the things that we think, or the things that we want to do in a way that respects ourselves, respects others, and respects God. Dating may be a very real way for you to learn to live out the important characteristics Paul wrote about. But you don't have to wait until you start dating to practice sexual integrity or to learn to live out these important characteristics. In fact, we need to put these characteristics into practice before we even start dating somebody. Think about it like this. Focus on becoming love before looking for love. So I don't know where you are with all this stuff, okay? Maybe you're already dating somebody, or maybe you're not allowed to date. Maybe you're waiting to date someone, or you're just really not that interested yet. All of that's okay. I promise. Whatever camp you fit in is perfectly normal and it's perfectly okay. Wherever you are, you have the opportunity right now to live out the characteristics of love that Paul wrote about in his letter to the Corinthians. The reality is that God has given us all the power we need to become the type of people He wants us to be. So instead of using dating as a way to look for the right person, let's focus on developing the characteristics of love that Paul listed out for us. So focus on becoming love before looking for love. How can we do this? Well, first off, pick one of the characteristics on Paul's list that you want to develop for yourself. Okay? Maybe you could use more patience. Or you could be quicker to forgive. Or you want to cut back on the rude comments that you make to those you care about most. Well, what if you just started by picking one characteristic in yourself that you want to grow? Then, practice what you pick. And I'm being serious here. You really need to practice what you pick, right? Like, if you have a tendency to be rude to those that you really care about, now you need to focus on love, right? Now you need to focus on practicing giving compliments to those people instead of insulting them. If you tend to be impatient, practice patience in your response to people this week. Or instead of holding a grudge, practice bringing it up and talking about it with the other person. None of this is easy, but all of it can be so good. Real love takes a ton of work. If we're going to become love before looking for love, we're going to need to focus on growing the characteristics necessary to be the type of person we would want to date. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. The garbage people are coming by right now, which is like terrible timing. All right, let me finish this up. I got just like a minute left. So a person who is kind, patient, honest, humble, hopeful, and all the other things that Paul mentioned. That's who we want to become, right? Look, dating can definitely be awkward. There's no doubt about it, okay? And when you choose to focus on the stuff that's important before you start dating, you're taking a step in the right direction. When you develop the characteristics God wants you to have and treat the other person the way He created you to, it can help you practice sexual integrity both now and in your future relationships. Just imagine if for you, dating could be a really positive experience for both you and the other person involved. Even if you're not dating yet, what if focusing on becoming the loving person God created you to be could set you up for a better dating life in the future? Imagine if choosing to focus on becoming love before looking for love set you up to have the best dating life possible. I know it might feel early to talk about dating for some of you, but it's never too early to become the person God created you to be. And that's why we spent the last 4 weeks talking about sex and sexual desires here at church. Even though these topics can be awkward, I really believe that they're important conversations for us to have, especially in junior high. And we don't want the conversations to stop here, okay? That's why you have a community group leader. That's why you have a community group. So today, I want you to keep the conversation about dating going with your community group. If nothing else, you can encourage each other to build characteristics that help you grow in love with each other. And that's a pretty cool place to start. This week, what's one way you can work on it? Thank you all so much for hanging out. I know these past 4 weeks may have been challenging to get through, but I'm proud of you. Okay, I hope that you were mature enough to handle it. But 4 weeks are over, so we're moving into a new series starting next week. I hope your community groups are going well. I just want to remind you and encourage you to share the good things that God is doing in your life. I want you to pray for the things that you need God to help you with, or just however you need Him to intervene. And then I want to remind you, be praying for your oikos every day. Be inviting, if they don't have a community group, or if they don't go to church, invite them to your group. That would be huge, okay? So anyways, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next week.